Welcome to my channel. In this video, we will dive into all the important directives in Blazor and provide practical examples for each one. Blazor directives are essential for building interactive and dynamic web applications. Let's get started. I just created the solution, namely Blazor Directive solution. Actually, this is a template for creating a Blazor web app that supports both server-side rendering and client-side interactivity. Therefore, in this solution, we have two projects, namely Blazor server-side project and Blazor WebAssembly project. Let's run this application and see. In this application, we have one side menu. In the side menu, we have three menu items here. The first one is Home, Hello World. This is a page. And the second one is Counter page. Okay. Then we have a menu here, Weather. Actually, this is also a page. In this application, the default Blazor application, we have three pages here. Blazor directives are built-in macros that alter the transpiled C# code that is generated from Blazor markup. Directives are used by preceding the identifier with the @ symbol. The identifier could be the name of an HTML elements attribute or the name of a Blazor component's property. Note that currently Blazor does not allow developers to create custom directives. First, let's start with the @page directive. This directive is used to define a route for a Blazor component or page. Actually, this directive generates a route attribute on the transpiled class. Namely, it generates page attribute and enabling Blazor routing to identify which component or page to render when given a specific address in the URL. Let's see in the pages. We just see the pages here. We have three pages here: Home, Counter, and Weather. This is the Home. Then we have a Weather page here. We are displaying some data in the table. Then let's see here pages. We have counter.Blazor here. Actually, this is a page also. Now, let's see here. We have here @page directive. This is the @page directive. In the component, we don't have it. This is also a component, we don't have it. But in the page, you see, files in the page, we have @page directive. For example, Home, we have page, @page, then we have double quotation, then slash. Because this is represent the home page, therefore just slash. Then if you see here, we have page directive, then we have route /weather. If we see the count page, same thing. Page directive, then followed by /count. Namely, all pages, all components which have @page directive are displaying as a page in the application. Home page, counter, then we have weather page. All of these three pages inside this, for example, this is the home, this is the weather page, and this is the counter page. All three Blazor components includes @page directive followed by a route. Therefore, if we create a Blazor component, place @page directive at the top of the page followed by a router, just like this, for example, @page /router, then we can display that Blazor component as a page. Even we have a error.Blazor here, we are putting @page followed by /error. Because we are going to display this error message as a page. If we create the Blazor component, then put the add page directive along with the router at top of the component. As a time, we can display that component, namely that Blazor component, in the UI as a page. Okay, now let's see that. For example, I just clear this one. Okay, let's clear this one. Now let's create one page here. For example, a hello page. First, let's add Blazor component. Let's name it hello. Then add. Now we just created hello. Let's add some information here. For example, let's do this. Page title. Hello. Then let's add some message, for example. Okay, I just add hello. This is the page title. Then I just add hello Blazor. Now save this. Now I don't have add page directive at the top of the component. Now I am going to call this component as a page. For example, come here, just enter hello. This local host page can't be found. No web page was found for the web address this local host / hello. This is error. Because actually, I have already created it. It's here, but it says this local host page can't be found. Something is wrong. I am going to display this component as a page, but I couldn't. Why? Because I don't have add page directive along with a route. Now, this time, let me add page, then add a router, for example. Let's say it hello. Okay, hello. Now save this. Let me stop this. Okay, now let me run again. Okay, I have home, counter, and I have weather. Now let me add that hello here. Hello. This time, hopefully, I will see hello at the page title, then hello Blazor as a page. Here we go. Hello Blazor. Why I can see this? Because I just put add page directive along with the hello route at the top of the component. If we don't have add page directive, at that time, that component can't be displayed as a page. Therefore, add page directive is used to display a Blazor component as a page in the Blazor WebAssembly or in the Blazor server side. This whole URL will be mapped to the actual Blazor component. Now, we can see this as a page here. Also, I can add this in the navigation. For example, we have a navigation here, navigation menu. Just copy this, then put it here. Let me say all. Then here, let's say hello. Then because we have here hello. Namely, we have here this hello route. Therefore, we can use that route. Just copy this in case hello. Then I just put it here. Let me put it here. This is the href equal to this route. Actually, this is route. This is the counter route, and this is the weather route, and this is the, I just copy it. Therefore, just I am going to put it here hello. If I put it hello, href, and I just assign it hello. Save this, and okay, refresh this. Now let me see here. I have hello here because I just create one new menu here. In summary, this page directive used to define a route for a Blazor component. Namely, this component can be accessed via this /hello URL. Therefore, this page directive along with the /hello this route will map to the actual component. Therefore, the page directive makes it easy to set up routing for your components. Add code directive is used to define C# code within a Blazor component. In other words, this directive identifies a block of C# code that should be output as is into the resulting transpiled C# file. In Blazor, each component or page might include add code directives. For example, let's see the counter page. Actually, this is a very simple page. However, this page includes two parts. The first selected part called HTML portion, and the second part called C# code portion. Namely, each page or component in Blazor include two parts, HTML part and this C# code part. Therefore, the C# code part should be written inside the add code directive. The add code directive allows us to keep our C# code and HTML code together in a single file. For example, this counter.razor is a single file. Inside the single file, we have two kinds of codes, HTML and C#. Since we have this add code directive, we can keep these HTML and C# codes together inside this single counter.razor file. If we have a page or component, and then if we have some kind of logic inside the component or page, at that time we might write that logic inside the add code directive. For example, inside this counter page, we have a simple logic. Namely, when we click this button, increment count will be called, and this current count initialized with 0. Each time this button is clicked, this current count will be increment 1. This is our logic. This logic has been written inside this add code directive. Okay, now let's see another page. For example, inside this weather page, we also have two parts. Upper portion until here, this is the HTML part. And then we have here, from here to here, we have some C# codes. Namely, this page, the weather page, consisted of two parts, the HTML part and then the selected C# code portion. However, we can have multiple add code directives in a single Blazor markup file. Now we have only one here. Okay, let's divide it multiple add code directives. For example, okay, I have created one add code directive. For example, I just copy this and cut this, paste it here. Now, previously, then I create another one. For example, here, let me create another one. Okay, then just copy this, cut this, and paste it here. Previously, we have just one add code directive. Now, I divided that original add code directive into three add code directives. The first one is, we have inside the first one, we have this variable. Then inside the second @code directive, we are getting data with some logic. Then in the third part, namely in the third @code directive, declaring this further focused object. Namely, at first we have only one @code directive. Now in the single weather.razor file, we have 3 @code directives. Now I save this and run the application. Hopefully the weather page will be displayed without any changes. Let's run this application. Okay, now let's go to the weather page. Let's see. Hopefully there is nothing changed. Okay, click this. Okay, the weather page is as is. The weather page has been displayed as is without any changes. This means in the single razor file, we can have multiple @code directives. The result is same. Namely, Blazor will integrate multiple @code directives and produce final C# code in the transpiled file. In summary, in Blazor, each page or component have @code directive. The @code directive allows us to keep our C# code and HTML code together in a single file. Then we can have multiple @code directive in a single razor markup file. The @inject directive is used for dependency injection in razor components. Namely, it allows components to specify dependencies they require to be injected by Blazor when it creates a new instance of the component. In the following section, let's see a service injection example. In order to ease understanding, I will divide this process into 4 steps. Step 1. Let's create a simple service, namely a greeting service with a getGreeting method. And let the getGreeting method returns a hello from greeting service message. Step 2. Let's register the greeting service in the program.cs. Step 3. Now we can just inject this service by using the @inject directive in a specific component or page. Finally, step 4, we can use the registered service in a component or page. Now let's do that. Let's create our service. First, let's create a services folder. Let me stop the application. Let's add the service. Since service is a class, greeting service. Add. Let's add a method. Namely, we are going to add getGreetings method. That method will return hello from the greetings service, a message. We have created our service, namely greeting service. Inside the greeting service, we just created a method, getGreeting. This method will return hello from the greeting service. Okay, save this. Now, since we have greeting service, we are going to use this service in a specific component or page. Therefore, first of all, we need to register this service in the program.cs file. Before register it, let's go this underscore, let's go underscore import file, and we need to reference the newly created service folder. Save this. Now we can register our service in the program.cs file. Just copy the service name. We have a container here, builder, therefore builder services. We have a service collection, and then add scope. That's it. We just registered our service, namely builder.services add scoped greetings service. Now we can use this service across the application. However, in order to use this service, we need to use add inject directive. Okay. Now we have created our service, then we have registered it in the program.cs file. Now we can use this service in the application, namely in a specific component or in a specific page. We can use this service by using add inject directive. Okay, now let's use this service inside the hello.razor, namely in the hello page. Okay. Inject, the service name is greeting service. Okay, then greeting service, that's it. We just injected it. Now we can use this service. Let's create a paragraph element here, then greeting service. Since we have a get greeting method inside this service, therefore get greeting. Okay, we just call this method, and this method will display hello from the greeting service message. Okay, let's see that. Okay, now save this. Let's run the application and click the hello menu. Hopefully we will see the hello from the greeting service message. Okay, we have here, if I click this hello menu, hopefully I will see hello from the greeting service. Hello from the greeting service. Here we go. It works great. Namely, what I did until now is, in the section, first I created a service, namely greeting service. Then I just added get greeting method inside this greeting service. This get greeting method will return hello from the greeting service. Then we just registered it in the program.cs file, because the program.cs file is the entry point of this application. Therefore, I just registered it, and now this greeting service is available in the application. In order to use this service, we need to first inject this service by using the add inject directive. Therefore, in the hello page, we just injected it by using the add inject directive. Here, just here, we injected it. This is the service injected because we have the get greeting method. Therefore, in a paragraph element, we just call it that method, and then we just run the application. We just saw the hello from the greeting service. This is the process of the service injection. If you have a service, we can inject it by using the add inject directive. Therefore, add inject directive is very important. This add inject directive is used for dependency injections, because in the .NET we have dependency injection. Therefore, in order to use the dependency injection, we can use add inject directive. Now I just inject this greeting service, custom service. But in Blazor, we have built-in services, for example, HTTP client. Then we also have IJS runtime service. Therefore, we can inject any kind of service by using this add inject directive. The add inject directive simplifies dependency injection in Blazor components, making our code more modular and testable. The add user directive is used to import namespaces into a Blazor project or into a Razor component. First, let's see how we import namespaces into a project. In the solution, we have two projects. The first one is Blazor Directives and the second one is Blazor Directives.client. Let's see. Each project have its own underscore imports.razor file. For example, we have here for the first project, then we also have here for the second project. Now let's see the first one. Inside this file, we are importing many namespaces by using the add user directive. For example, the first one is system.net.http. The second one is using system.net.http.json, etc. Namely, in a project, we are using many built-in or some custom namespaces. At a time, we just use add user directive and imports namespaces. Therefore, add user directive is very important, and this directive is used to import necessary namespaces into Blazor projects. In addition, we also use this add user directive in order to import other projects. For example, in the solution, we just mentioned that we have two projects. The first one is Blazor Directives. The second one is Blazor Directives.client. Inside this project, actually, we need to use this Blazor Directives.client's some objectives. For example, we are going to display this counter.razor page in the application. Therefore, we need to import this namespace. Therefore, we are importing it here by using this add user directive. Therefore, we can import built-in namespaces. We also import custom namespaces. We also import other projects into a Blazor projects by using this add user directive. In addition, in a specific Blazor component or specific Blazor pages, we also can use this add user directive, import some kind of namespace, and use some objects inside that namespace. For example, in the hello.razor page, here we have greetings. For example, hello Blazor. Now, let's replace this a greeting which generated from the string builder. Now let's do that. In order to use string builder, we need to import a namespace. Namely, string builder class resides inside the system.text namespace. Therefore, first we need to import system.text namespace by using the add user directive. First, let's do that. Now, we just imported system.text by using add user directive. Therefore, we can use the string builder class inside this project. Okay, now let's create a generate greetings method by using the string builder class. Now we have created our method. This method accepted a name argument. Then by using this name, we are creating a message here, namely hello, the name. We are using string builder because we just imported the namespace system.text. Actually, we know that string builder is residing inside this system.text namespace. Therefore, after we imported this namespace by using the @user directory, we are able to use this string builder class. Now, let's replace this message with the new greeting. Okay. Therefore, I just remove this one. Then add, because we just created our method. Because the actual message is hello Blazor. Therefore, I just enter Blazor here. That's it. Hopefully, this will work. In summary, first, I just imported system.text by using the @user directive. Then we are ready to use string builder class because we just imported the namespace. By using this string builder object, we just created our message. Now, message or greetings has been created. Then, in the final stage, we just call it this message with the Blazor argument. Now, let's run the application. First, let me stop the application and run again because we just added some C# codes here. Save this, stop it. Now, I just run it again. Hopefully, when I click the side menu, namely when I click the hello side menu, at that time, we will see hello Blazor message. Okay. If I click this hello menu, we will see hello Blazor message. Hello Blazor. Here we go. It works great. In this section, we just presented @user directive. @user directive ensures you have access to the namespace you need within your components or your projects. The @binder directive is used for data binding. Allows us to data binding, including one-way and two-way binding to the property of a component being consumed or the attribute of an HTML element. Actually, we have two data binding directives, namely @bind and @bind-value directive. The first one, @bind directive, is being used for standard HTML elements. The second one, bind-value directive, is being used for the razor elements such as input text or input number, etc. In the following section, first I will create examples for these two types of data binding directives. Then explain the codes line by line. Now let's create the data binding example. First, let me clear here. Let's create the example in the counter page. Open the counter page. Okay. Okay, I just completed the example code. Now let's run this application and see the result. Before that, I just explain line by line. First, I have created two variables, namely the first name and the last name. Then I just created two input elements. The first one is standard HTML input element. The second one is Razor input element. Therefore, we just using two types of data binding directives here. The first one is at bind directive. The second one is at bind dash value directive. Okay, then after we bind the data, namely we input the first name, then input the last name. In order to achieve the two-way data binding, we are displaying these first name and last names as a full name. Therefore, first I am checking the first name, then I am checking the last name. If they are not equal to null at that time, we just show the full name. Okay, now let's run the application and see the result. Okay, now we have okay, now I have put the two screens side by side. One is the left side is the source code and this is the UI. Okay, now let's input the first name, then input the last name. At first, because I have here some condition, at first when I enter the first name, nothing will display here because I have used here and. Therefore, after I complete the entering of the last name, the full name will be displayed here. Okay. Then, okay, it's good. Full name, John Doe. It works. Namely, this is the two-way data binding in Blazor. In Blazor, data binding has been very simplified. In summary, in order to data binding, we may use two directives. The first one is at bind directives. The second one is at bind dash value directive. The first one, at bind directive, is being used for standard HTML elements. Then at bind dash value, this is being used for Razor elements. In Blazor, data binding is very simplified, including one-way and two-way data bindings, keeping your UI and the data in sync. The add inherits directive is used to specify a base class for a Razor component. Let's say we have some business logics and we need to use them across the application. In other words, we are going to use the business logics in multiple components or pages. This is where we need to use the add inherits directive. Namely, first we may create a base class which includes all necessary business logics. Then we may inherit the components or pages from the base class we just created. Therefore, the add inherits directive helps us to reuse logics across multiple components by defining a common base class. In the following section, let's create an add inherits directive example. First, let's create a base class, namely my base component.cs. Second, let's add the message property to the base class with some messages. Third, we inherit component or page from the just created my base component.cs class and display the message property of the base class in the page. Now let's do it in the hello page. First, I just display the hello page. Before that, I need to clear this. Okay, In order to simplicity, I just clear the hello.razor page. Just save this. First, let's create the class, namely my base component class. Let me stop the application. Let's create a model folder. Let's add the class, namely base class. My base component. Okay. Now, this class should be inherited from the component base class. Let's add a message. Okay, save this. Actually, here we just declare it, this message, as public. Actually, we can declare it protected. This is also okay. Now let's use protected because we are going to reference, or we are going to inherit this my base class inside this application. Therefore, it's okay to use protected here. Okay, now we are going to use this my base component class across the application. First, we need to reference Blazor Directives.modulus because we just created this modulus folder. Therefore, we need to import this namespace in the underscore import.razor file. Just here. We just created the modulus folder. That's it. Now save this. Now let's use it inside this hello.razor class. For example, therefore, first we just use at inherits directive and my base component. That's it. Now we call this component derived component. Inside this class, we have a message property. Now let's use that message property and display the message just here. For example, let's use h3 element. Then, for example, add message. Just here. That's it. Save this. Until now, first we have created a modulus folder. Then we created my base components class. Then we have added a message property here. We can use this class's properties or methods. Therefore, we just use directly, we just called message property directly here because we just inherited it here. Because this component just inherits from this base class. Therefore, inside this page or this component, we can use this message property. Okay, now save this. Let's run the application, see the result. When I click the hello side menu, this message should be displayed on the page. Okay, now let's run the application. Okay, if I click this hello from the base class, a message will be displayed here. Okay, hello from the base class is displayed. Okay, it works great. This is the message from the base class. Okay, now let's check again. First, we just created our base class. After that, this hello.razor page inherit this from the my base component because we just inherited it. Therefore, we can use this class's properties or methods inside this application directly. Now I just use it this my base classes message property directly here. That's it. Therefore, if we have a common logic or if we have a common business logics, and we need to use it across the application. At a time, we just create a common base class and then inherits it inside some pages or some components, and we can use that logic in the pages or in the comments. In summary, at inherits directive helps us to reuse logic across multiple components by defining a common base class just like this. The add attribute directive is used to add attributes to the generated HTML element for the component. Namely, the add attribute directive is useful for adding metadata to the components. Let's see some example of the add attribute directive. Here, I will introduce two examples for the add attribute directive. The first one, we can find it in the weather.razor page. First, let's go to the weather.razor page. This is the weather.razor page. Namely, here displaying some weather-related data in the UI by using a table. We have table here, then we are displaying it in the table format. This is the getting data portion. Before getting data, there is one simulation, namely simulate asynchronous loading to demonstrate streaming rendering. Before getting data, in order to simulate the asynchronous loading to demonstrate streaming rendering, we just delaying this process for 500 milliseconds. Therefore, during this 500 milliseconds, we are going to display some kind of message. For example, data loading. In order to do that, we may use this add attribute directive followed by stream rendering. Okay, because of this, when we run it and when we're going to click this weather page, and it will show loading. This message will be displayed because we have this. Okay, now let's run the application and see the result. This is built-in page, and the Microsoft is using this add attribute inside this template. Therefore, we just see that, we just make sure that. Now the application is running. I just put the screen side by side. The left side is source code and the right side is the application. Okay, now if I click this weather, and it will show this loading. Okay, loading. If I change this 1000, for example, 1000 milliseconds in order to ease understanding. Okay, just save this. Now let's come again. Okay, home. Then let's come again, weather page. Okay, it's loading. Namely, it's displaying loading that message because of this. Therefore, this add attribute followed by streaming to indicate whether the stream to rendering of component and its descendants, because we just adding this stream rendering as an attribute. As a result, we just added this kind of metadata to the component. Note that this attribute only takes effect with the renders that support streaming rendering. For example, server-side HTML rendering from a Razor component endpoint. Therefore, this is effective for server-side. In other hosting models, it has no effect. Okay, then let's add another add attribute directive. Let's add attribute, then let's add authorize. Okay, this is not authorized, but add attribute, then authorize. Now, let's stop the application in case I just save this and run again, because I just added this authorize as an attribute. Namely, at present, we have added authorized attribute to this component. Therefore, it looks for some authorization, namely I authorization service, because now we don't have that service, but I added this and then I just run the application. Therefore, hopefully, when I click this page, for example, weather.razor page, hopefully I get some authorization error because I just added this at attribute directory, follow it, let's authorize this attribute. Actually, now I don't have authorization related service inside this application. Therefore, I should get error, authorization related error. Now, let's try that. If I click this, I should get error. Let's try that. Okay, this is great. An unhandled exception occurred while processing the request. The error message is I authentication service. There is no I authentication service because since we added that authorized attribute, we need to process or we need to use some kind of authentication service and authorize the user. But we didn't do that. We just only add that attribute because we have that attribute and we don't have the detailed or concrete service. Therefore, we should get this kind of error. This is working great. The add-type param directive is used to define a generic component. Namely, it instructs Blazor to generate a generic class from the Razor markup. As a result, the component can be used with different data types specified by the item. In the following section, let's create a component, a generic component which uses the add-type param directive. In first step, let's create a component and name it generic component.razor. In the second step, call the component in the hello.razor page with different data types specified by the item. In the third step, run the application and see the result. Let's create the component. We are going to use add-type param directive here. Let's create a parameter. Now this component can accept value from outside. Now let's display this item in the HTML path. That's it. We have completed our generic component.razor component. Save this. First, we just added add-type param. This is the T item. T item might be int data type, might be double data type, might be string. Namely, this T item should be generic data type. Therefore, we just use it add type param here. Then, after we get data from the parent component, for example, now we have value inside this item parameter. Therefore, we are just displaying it in here. That's it. Now, let's call this component in the hello.razor component with different types of parameters. Okay. First, let's call with string. In the case of string, we need to use at here. Now, let's use int data type. Just copy this, paste it here. Let's use int here. Int. For this, let's give some okay. Now, in the third step, Let's use double. That's it. We are using add type parameter directive. Therefore, these cases are possible. Now, let's see the result. Hopefully, I am going to get 3 lines of message. The first one is item colon hello Blazor. The second one is item colon 123. The third one is item colon 123.54. Okay, let's run the application and see the result. Okay, now let's click the hello and hopefully we will see some message. Okay, this is the first one. String hello Blazor. Int the second one and the double the third one. Therefore, by using add type param, we can create generic components. In summary, add type param directive enables us to create versatile or generic and reusable components. The component can be used with different data types specified by the T item. The add key directive is used to improve rendering performance by providing a unique identifier for elements in a list. In other words, the add key directive helps Blazor efficiently render lists by uniquely identifying each element. Therefore, the add key directive is essential for optimizing performance when rendering lists. In the following section, let's create an example for the add key directive. Since we have a hello.razor page in this application, let's just use this page for the add key directive example. Now, let's implement the add key directive. First, I need to clear this page. Let's clear this. Okay, now I have cleared the page. Now, let's implement it. And then, first, I will write the code. Then I will explain the code line by line. Now, let's explain what we did until now. First, in the add code directive, we just created a class, namely an item class. This class includes 2 properties, ID and a name. After that, we just created an items list. Inside the list, we have 5 elements or 5 items. In the HTML portion, we just created an unordered list. In the unordered list, we are going to display these 5 items as a list. Therefore, I just use it for each here, then looping through this item list. When we create each list, namely we here creating each list, this is the caption of the list. Inside this list, we are assigning item IDs to the add key directives. Actually, this is a unique identifier because our item ID is unique. Therefore, this add key directive is unique. We are assigning a unique identifier for each list by using this add key directive. This is very important. Why we do that? Because this is unique. Therefore, it's very important, especially when updating this list. If we have a very large list, at that time, if we create or if we display this kind of large list, if we give it or if we assign it a unique identifier, it's very easy to update it. Namely, this add key directive helps Blazor optimize DOM updates by maintaining a consistent mapping between the data items and the rendered DOM elements. This mapping reduces unnecessary re-renders and ensures that only the necessary DOM changes are made when the list is updated. If you have a very large list, for example, because this is unique. However, this directive does not affect the HTML output itself. It's purely for Blazor's internal optimization. If you need specific attributes in your HTML, you must add them explicitly in your markup. Namely, if we are going to add an ID key here, we need to explicitly add it in this markup. But this add key directive is purely for Blazor's internal optimization. Okay, now let's run this application and see the result. Hopefully, we will see item 1, item 2 until item 5 a list here. Okay, now let's run this application and see in the application it will be displayed. Okay, let's go to the hello page. Okay, here we go. The list is just has been displayed in the UI. The add layout directive in Blazor is used to specify a layout component for a razor component or page. Layout components help us apply consistent look and feel across multiple pages. Actually, the add layout directive generates a layout attribute on a transpiled C# class. Blazor uses this to determine which layout to use, if any, to wrap the contents of a page. There are many use cases for the add layout directive. However, below are two examples demonstrating different use cases for the add layout directive. First, I will create the first custom layout example and then explain the code line by line. Now, let's create the example. Namely, we will create a custom layout, then use the custom layout in the home page instead of the default layout. In general, layouts are resided inside the layout folder. Therefore, I will create the custom layout just inside this layout folder. Let's do that. Okay, I just create the component. Actually, layouts are inherits from layout component base class. Let's see the default layout first. This is the default layout or main layout. Layout inherits from layout component base. Therefore, we just copy this. Okay, just put it here. Okay, now let's do the other things. For example, in this layout, let's just put two lines here. For example, one line here, second line just here. Namely, inside this two line, is the body. If we use this custom layout in the home page, the content of the home page will be replaced by this at body portion. Namely, inside this two line, that this is the top line and this is the below line. Inside this line is the home page content, for example, when we apply this custom layout to the home page. Therefore, in order to easy understanding, I just add here two line. Okay, now let's save this. Let's implement this custom layout in the home page. Okay, now I just implement the custom layout. Just save this and run the application. Hopefully, in the UI, we will see a custom layout instead of the default layout for the home page. But other pages, for example, contact page or weather pages, is use the previous default layout. Namely, in the home page, hopefully we will see at the section in custom layout, then align. After that, the home page content, then we have a line. After that, we will see footer section in custom layout. Therefore, let's run the application and see the result. Okay, the application is running. Here we go. First, we just see that header section in custom layout, then align here, and then this is the content of the home page. The content of the home page is displaying just between these two lines. I just put two lines there. Then here is the footer section in custom layout. Let's put the UI and the source code line by line and see it. If I here contact page, previously I just mentioned that only for home page we are displaying the custom layout. For other pages, for example, contact page or weather page, we are using the default layout or main layout. For example, let me display this weather page. This is also the default layout. Only this home page is custom layout. Okay, let's do that. Here we go. At the section in custom layout, and this is the content of the page or home page. This is the footer portion of the layout, custom layout. In the home page, if I don't use this, if I comment out this, or if I delete this and run again, for example, okay, I just save this and run again, we will see here the old or our main layout or default layout. Here we go. This is the main layout. Now we are in the home page. It's restored to the main layout or default layout. If I undo this and save it again, as that time, okay, it's changed. Therefore, by using this at layout, we can implement our custom layout. This is very powerful and very convenient directive in Blazor applications. Sometimes we use that custom layout with parameter. Namely, we can pass parameter to the custom layout. At that time, we can change look and feel in the application. If we have a large application, we might use different layouts with different layout parameters. At the time, we need to use parameterized layout. The layout directive in Blazor is a powerful tool for organizing our applications user interface consistently. By using layouts, we can apply a uniform structure and a style to multiple pages, making it easier to manage and update our app's appearance. The at implements directive is used to specify that a Razor component implements an interface. In the following section, as an example of the at implements directive, let's create an interface of my component with a method. Then implement the interface in the counter.razor page. Now let's implement that. First, let me clear this screen. Let's display the counter page, and then I need to clear some content of this counter page because we didn't use it. Let me clear this portion. Let me clear also this portion. Now, the counter page has been restored its initial status. Save this. First, let me create a modules folder. Now let's add the interface. My component. This is the interface. Let's add a method. Okay, first I have created the interface, namely my component, then I just added a method to something. Save this. Because we just added a new folder here, therefore we need to add this folder inside this underscore imports.razor file. Save this. In case we also added inside this the first server-side project as well. Okay. Now we have created our interface, and then we also imported the namespace of the modules folder. Now let's implement this interface in the counter page. Now let's go to the counter page. In order to implement interface in the Blazor, we just mentioned that we need to use at implements directive. Therefore, the interface name is my component. This one. Okay. Now we just use it at implements directive and just call the my component here. Now let's implement it here. Let's add the message here. Save this. Now let's call this method inside this increment count, because when we click the click me button, we know that in the counter page one increment will be increased. As a time, we just call this function, and in the console we are going to see hello from the my component interface. Let's call this, just copy this, and let's call it here. Okay, that's it. Now save this, and in case we just build again. Now let's run the application and see the result. Now we are going to see the interface implementation result. Therefore, just click counter page. We need to see the console, for example, here, then console. Okay, let me clear here, come here, and then come again, and let me click it again. Hopefully, I will see that message here. Hello from the my component interface. We have the message here, and that message is displaying in the console. Therefore, we can implement interface by using at implements directive. If I go to implement disposable, we can do that. For example, implements disposable, for example. Therefore, now let me stop the application. If I run this application, I will see error because I just called the disposable, but I didn't implement yet because inside this disposable interface we have a dispose method. I just call it here, but did not implement its method yet. Therefore, okay, let's see. Because we have error here. Because we did not implement the disposable interfaces dispose method. Therefore, we are seeing this error. Counter does not implement interface member disposable.dispose method. This is correct. If I implement that, for example, here, public void dispose. For example, let's write some message here. Just copy this. Hello from the. Okay. Hello from the dispose method. We just implemented this dispose method. Let's call the dispose method inside this increment count, for example. Because inside the dispose, we are just displaying a message, not actually dispose this page or something. In the actual production or in the actual applications, here we need to dispose something. For example, some kind of resource. But there we are just going to show how we implement this interface inside this code directive in the Blazor components. Therefore, here we just showing a message. For example, let's change this message. Some resources has been disposed. Therefore, I just copy this and call it here. Okay, now hopefully I will see, first I will see hello from the my component interface. Second, I should see some resources have been disposed. Okay. It's working now. Then let's see console. This is the console. Clear here. We have two messages here. The first one is hello from the my component interface. The second one is some resources has been disposed, because we have do something method and we have here dispose method. Therefore, both methods are inside this interfaces, namely my component interface and disposable interface, because we know very well that inside disposable interface we have dispose method. Therefore, we just implemented it. If I comment this one as a time, it will show an error because we didn't implement this one. Now we have implemented it. Let's see the result. Okay, click it. Okay, hello from my component. The message is here. Hello from the my component interface. Hello from the my component interface. Second is some resources has been disposed. Some resources has been disposed. Therefore, the add implements directive allows us to enforce contractors in our components through interfaces. Namely, in the Blazor components or pages, we can implement interfaces by using add implements directive. Add implements directive is very convenient if you have an interface, and we can use this add implements directive and implements the interface and its methods. Okay. Next, we are going to implement other directives. Therefore, I need to restore this application for its original state. Namely, we need to restore this counter.result page its default state. Okay, for that, stop the application, and then I just remove this one, and I also remove this new methods, then also remove it here. Now I just restored the counter.razor page to its initial state. Save this. The attrib directive is used to capture a reference to an HTML element or component. In other words, identifies a member or property of the current component that should hold a reference to an HTML element or component that will be rendered. For example, for an HTML input element, the attrib directive captures a reference to the input element, allowing the component to interact with it programmatically. Next, let's show example of capturing reference to an HTML input element. First, let's create an HTML input element and add it a attrib directive. Then, create a button element. When clicking the button, let's focus the input element. Now, let's do the example in counter page. Let's implement it here. That's it. I just create example. Let's explain that. First, I just create one input element. This is the input element, and this is the attrib directory for this element. Therefore, this attrib directory assign it to my input. Here, this is the my input. Actually, this is type of element reference because we are referencing this input element by using this my input. Therefore, the type for this, the type is element reference. Okay. Then I have created a button. When I click this button, this focus input method will be called. Inside the focus input method, we just using this my input because this is the reference for this input element, and we call this focus async method. Therefore, once we click this button, the focus automatically put the input element, or the focus automatically place the input element. Okay, now let's run the application, see the result. First save this, now run the application. Okay. Okay, we have here, this is the input element, and this is the button, focus input button. Therefore, if I click this, hopefully the focus will be placed inside this input element. Now, let's do that. Okay, here we go. The focus, put it there. Okay, let me refresh again. Now, there is no focus for this input element. If I click this focus input button, hopefully this input element will be focused. Namely, the focus will be placed inside this input element. Let's do that. Okay, yeah. This is great. It's working great. This is not only HTML element. Attrib directive can be used to other elements, even can be used to components. Therefore, sometimes when we are going to access elements or components inside the attrib directive, Namely, we are going to manipulate HTML elements or components by programmatically. At that time, we need to use href directive. Therefore, href directive is very important and very powerful and very convenient. The href directive is useful for directively manipulating HTML elements within our components. Until now, we have introduced many built-in Blazor directives. In addition, there are other directives including @namespace directive, @section directive, and @preserve whitespace directives, and so on. The @namespace directive is used to specify a namespace for a Blazor component. The @namespace directive helps us organize our components within specific namespace. The @section directive is used to define a name section that can be filled in by components that use the layout. The @section directive allows us to define customizable sections within our layouts. Finally, the @preserve whitespace directive is used to preserve whitespace in the rendered output of a component. The @preserve whitespace directive ensures that the exact formatting of our HTML, including spaces and new liners, is maintained. Now, that wraps up our comprehensive guide to the Blazor directives. We covered a lot of ground, from basic directives like @page directive and @code directive to more advanced ones like @typeparam directive and href directives. Understanding these directives is crucial for building powerful and dynamic Blazor applications. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please like, comment, and subscribe for more Blazor content. Happy coding!